Hey guys, back here with another video. So I've been sick, and as you can hear, my voice is starting to come back, so it's a little out of whack. But so Senator Bernie Sanders did a town hall on CNN, and someone had asked him about socialism, like why should, what is a positive case for socialism? And I wanted to break down his response to that. So I've got the clip here. So let's take a listen.
Can you make a simple, persuasive case as to why socialism is preferable to capitalism?
Democratic socialism, right?
Yes.
Okay. Let me tell you what I mean by that so we're clear. Right now, we have a nation which prides itself on a lot of political rights. In other words, under the Constitution, thank God you have freedom of speech. Media can do its thing, even though Trump calls you an enemy of the people. How does that feel to be an enemy? That's another story. All right.
Well, they kind of are. But Sanders, and I don't want to rag on him too much for this, but technically the Constitution doesn't grant us these rights, which is kind of what he was inferring. The Constitution protects those rights because the rights are given to us by a power beyond the state. That's a super important part, which I think that socialism doesn't understand. Socialism is more so about what can the state offer you, or what rights can the state give you, as opposed to what rights does the state protect for you. In the case of the U.S. Constitution, freedom of speech, freedom of religion, those are rights granted to us by a power beyond this, that's more powerful than the state, be it God, natural law, or whatever you want to call it. And the Constitution protects us from the actual government from infringing on those rights.
One question, Wolf.
You don't think we are, though?
No, I don't. Okay, certainly.
And if you had said yes, Bernie, then I would have voted for you. I would have totally just voted for you right then.
We do not. So we have political right, freedom of religion, and all of that is enormously important. But you know what we don't have? We don't have guarantees regarding economic rights. And way back in
And that's that. So again, the rights that are protected by the U.S. Constitution are supposed to basically remove any barrier from someone doing whatever they want with their life. So by giving us freedom of speech, freedom to practice religion, the freedom to, you could look at the Bill of Rights, the first 10 amendments of the U.S. Constitution, and all those are not only social and cultural rights, but they are economic rights, because they give us the tools to be whatever we want to be, to do whatever we want to do, and to basically create the American dream for ourselves. So he doesn't see that. He needs to see black and white, saying, hey, the Constitution's going to say, I'm going to guarantee that you can earn X amount of money, or I'm going to guarantee that you have access to this kind of food, stuff like that. Which that's not part of the natural law. That's the whole point. The Constitution is based on protecting the rights that are given to us by natural law, and healthcare and food and stuff like that are not protected by natural law, because if that was the case, then animals wouldn't starve, people wouldn't starve, people out in the wild wouldn't starve. So I think the way he's basing his argument is a false base to begin with.
44, and a little publicized State of the Union speech, Franklin Delano Roosevelt said something, and I'm paraphrasing him, but he said, when we talk about human freedom and rights, we've got to understand that everybody needs a decent paying job, that people need health care, that people need education. And all over the world, these ideas are taking place. You go to countries in Scandinavia, of course.
Oh, and here he goes to Scandinavia. And again, that would be the dream, that everyone has access to health care, everyone has access to a paying job, that everyone has access to, amenities, in which, technically, even the poorest people of the United States and some of the poorest people in Europe are richer than anyone else has been in history. It's excuse me, still getting over this cold, but that's the thing, is that would be the dream, and that is the goal, but that's the whole point of the Bill of Rights, is to allow people to make the decision, or make the choice to do that, to make the choice to have access to those things. And and of course, naturally, and again, this goes back to natural law, some people are truly unlucky, right? But it's not the role of the government. The role of the government is to allow people the freedom to break out of any bad luck that they have, to rise above the occasion, if you will.
Healthcare is a right. Higher education is free. They have strong preschool programs. They make sure that their elderly folks can retire in dignity. These are not.
And again, he loves harping on the Scandinavian social or democracies, which those are capitalistic countries. Their economy is based on capitalism, and despite whatever Bernie wants to say, those are capitalistic countries, and that's why they've been so successful. But again, they're also much smaller. Sweden only has 9 million people. It's a lot easier to pay for college tuition for everybody. It's easier to have a social net, to have free health care when you're only 9 million people. Whereas you're a place like the U.S., which is over 300 million people, what is it, like 350? That it's an exponential rise in cost. It's not, if the U.S. was only 10 million people in size, or if our population is only 10 million, then yeah, this stuff may be achievable.
Radical ideas. So what democratic socialism means to me is having in a civilized society the understanding that we can make sure that all of our people live in security and in dignity. Healthcare is a human right. All people should have healthcare. That
is not a human right. A human right is granted to us by natural law, and if nature is any evidence, healthcare, elderly people being taken care of, stuff like that is not part of natural law. Again, the U.S. Constitution was based on enshrining the rights given to us by natural law, protecting the rights granted to us by natural law. And if you look at the Constitution in that manner, then things like healthcare, food, a social safety net are not human rights. Human rights are, the ability to go wherever you want, to say whatever you want, and believe whatever you want.
You can't get ahead in this country, in this world, unless you have a decent education. We have got to, as a right, end the kinds of discrimination, the racism and the sexism and the homophobia that exist.
And that'd be great. I don't think there's anybody out there, except for a very minor fraction of a percent of people, who would disagree with you on that. But dictating the government to fix that is a bad idea.
So to me, when I talk about democratic socialism, what I talk about are human rights and economic rights.
Senator, President Trump said in his State of the Union address, and I'm quoting him now, America, this is the president.
And the NPCs clap.
America will never be a socialist country. Will that hold true if you're elected president?
If I am elected president, we will have a nation in which all people have health care as a right, whether Trump likes it or not. We are going to make public colleges and universities tuition free. We are going to raise the minimum wage to a living wage of at least $15 an hour. And whether Trump likes it or not, when I talk about human rights, you know what that also means? It means that our kids and grandchildren have the human right to grow up in a planet that is healthy and habitable.
So, again, the ability for everyone to have like a living wage would be great. The ability for everyone to have health care and go to college would be great. And again, that is not the role of the government. And that is enshrined in the Constitution. That is not the government's job to do those things, because again, this stuff is not natural law. Nature doesn't dictate, yes, you get to go to college. Nature doesn't care if you go to college, much like the U.S. Government does not care if you go to college. Now, granted, the government would prefer everyone, more people to go to college because it helps the economy, but it's not a right. It's not a natural law right. And, to talk about the living wage piece, earning $15 an hour, is a living wage, and in some parts of the country it definitely is. You'd be doing you'd be able to live fairly comfortable in places like Mississippi or Alabama on $15 an hour, unlike places like New York or California, where $15 an hour is that's just nothing. But the problem is that the people who complain about wanting to earn $15 an hour work at places like Walmart. They work at places like McDonald's and Wendy's and other fast food establishments. And there are other jobs that pay more than that. You can look at a lot of manual labor jobs, working on farms, working in the hospitality industry. All of them, on average, pay more than minimum wage. Many of them pay more than $15 an hour. Right, especially when you get into construction. I mean, people who out picking strawberries in a field actually earn decent money. So the problem is that people who are working at McDonald's are not willing to put on a pair of gloves and go work in the field. And the big question is, well, are they physically able to or not? That's a whole other question. But a lot of those people still could easily just put on a pair of gloves and actually do some manual labor, and they would earn more money. They'd probably have a much more fulfilling life, because it seems to be that studies show that people who work in manual labor actually have a better sense of fulfillment than people who are stuck on desk jobs or, flipping burgers or whatnot.
And it is really a disgrace and an embarrassment that we have a president who rejects science, who does not even understand that climate change is real and caused by human activity, who does not understand what this planet will look like in years to come if we do not go forward boldly and transform our energy system away from fossil fuels.
Let's continue with climate change right now. Michelle Gregory has a question.
All right, so that was pretty much it about socialism. I'm not going to get into the climate change debate. But, so, I mean, and again, we're seeing this embrace of socialism on the left, and I was very happy to see Trump basically say, no, we're never going to be a socialist country. That's not within the framework of the Constitution. And it's true, there's a lot of things that would require many amendments to be a true socialist country, in which people who call themselves democratic socialist, that's a joke. It's an absolute joke. It is a pipe dream. There's no way that you can have a socialist society that is democratic. Power is way too centralized for that to even happen. It's there's fewer checks and balances. There is going to be a huge potential for corruption and abuse, which we can see in a lot of countries that are very socialist, that there is a lot of corruption that goes on. I mean, that's just how it is. And when you say, oh, well, what about European, governments? They're so democratic socialist and stuff. No, they're capitalist countries, right? And they still have their corruption, but they are capitalist countries. So, and even you've had, I can't remember if it was Denmark or Sweden, the prime minister came out and rebuked Bernie Sanders saying, we are not socialists. I mean, this is why those countries have been able to have the social net, is because they've been very wealthy, capitalistic countries, and they have very small populations. So paying for everyone's college, paying for everyone's health care is something that's feasible. Unlike in a country with 350 million people, it's just not the cost. The cost of education and the cost of healthcare grows exponentially as your population increases, and it's just not sustainable for the U.S. But anyways, so I wanted to do that quick hot take. If you disagree with any of this, or you agree or whatever, hit that like button and leave a comment. I'm more than happy to engage in criticism or debate. I live for it. And hit me up on Twitter. It's Cultural Allen, and I definitely love debating on Twitter. It's kind of a pastime for me. So, anyways, if you like the content, subscribe. I appreciate it.